Hello, thank you for watching my channel today. My name is Sarah and my channel is called Your True Shelf. And today I'm doing a video about books that I would like to reread. There are two reasons for me doing this video, or three reasons actually. First of all, one of my goals for the year was to reread 3 books, and I have reread 2. One of them was The Pillar of the Stars by Emma Donoghue, which we read for my book club, and I'd already read that before, so that kind of wasn't a reread by choice, but I was really glad we were rereading it. The second one was The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, and then the third one is yet to be chosen. So that's one reason. The second reason is that I saw that Mercedes has been making videos about rereading books, and she's been really enjoying rereading some books that she previously really enjoyed. And then the third reason, which I think is the sort of driving factor behind making this video, is that there's a readathon coming in December called Remember December, where there are prompts, but it's encouraging you to reread books in the month of December. So I thought, well, I'll get some books together that I'd like to reread, and then I can choose of those which ones I will go ahead with. So in this pile, there'll undoubtedly be ones that I want to reread that I've forgotten, or that I had from the library, or in other formats that I haven't got on my shelves. There's also books that I know I will want to reread in the future, but I haven't included them on this list because I've read them relatively recently, and it will be something that will be happening in a while. Just also to say that it's really dark and gloomy here, and the lighting isn't very good, and I don't have a ring light, so I've got a lamp shining on me. She can see shadows, and I probably look a bit like a ghost, but it's either that or the light's pretty rubbish, so sorry about the lighting if it's not very good quality. Anyhow, right, I've been talking for 2 minutes and I haven't mentioned a single book, so let's press on with the books. The first one is a book that I haven't read since I was a child, and I would really like to reread, and this is White Fang by Jack London. I got this when books cost £2.99, so a really long time ago. I recently reread, or read for the first time actually, Call of the Wild by Jack London, and that made me want to reread White Fang, which is the tale about this wolf / dog called White Fang in the northwest of Canada, and yeah, I think it's just about his life. I think it might be a bit sad. I can't really remember the plot too much, but I would really like to reread it. That's the only young person's book I have on here. The next one is one which I read, I don't know how many years ago now, maybe 3. Oh, I think I read it in 2017, so actually like 6 years ago. And this is The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Richard Flanagan. This is a book following a surgeon called Dorigo Evans, and it's set in Australia, or he's Australian, and it's about his life, and then he goes off to World War II, and he is in a Japanese prisoner of war camp, and he's working on the Death Railway. And the reason that firstly this book meant so much to me when I read it is because that was the experience that my granddad had, and this for the first time really brought to life what it might have been like for him in his wartime experience as a Japanese prisoner of war. And I think this is one of the most incredibly written books I've ever read. It's very difficult to read in places, but there is a twist in the book, and now that I know the twist, I'd love to go back and reread it so that I can see how I've got that inside knowledge as I'm reading it again. And it just meant a lot to me, this book, and it was one of the best books I'd read the year I read it in, and it's really, really fantastic if you haven't read it. On a similar theme, the next book, this is my granddad's copy of the next book. It's one that we both really love, and I'd say it's one of my favourite books of all time, and I gave away my copy to keep his copy when he died, and that is Birdsong by Sebastian Faulkes. So this book I've only read once. I remember I must have been on a holiday, because I can remember like reading it all the time we were in the airport, and even when we were in queues and stuff, I couldn't stop reading it because I loved it so much. And this is set in World War One rather than World War Two. So it's about Stephen, who's our protagonist. Starts in 1910, and it works its way through World War One up until bits of the present day. And it's about him falling in love, about his time in the trenches in France. And it's, from what I remember of it, it's a beautiful story with beautifully written. I can still remember there were scenes in tunnels, and I have a thing about tunnels, not wanting to go in, like, not as in like tunnels you drive through, but like as in crawling into tunnels. That like totally freaks me out. And so yeah, I can still remember the tunnel scenes in this book. But I'd love to reread this one. This is one of my highest priority rereads, just because I enjoyed it so much at the time. I'd really like to see how I feel about it now and whether I still feel the same. The next book is also one that I consider to be a favourite of mine, and I'd like to see if it stands the test of time. And this is The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey, which again I read several years ago. And this is set in the 1920s in Alaska, and we're following Jack and Mabel, who are a couple who really wanted to have a child. And did they have a child? Yeah, they had a baby that they lost many years before. And then this mysterious girl keeps appearing, and it's all set in snow. This is a beautiful cover, and extreme cold, and this mysterious young girl keeps appearing, and they're not sure like if she's real or if she's why she keeps coming to them and that kind of thing. And it's beautiful and haunting, and it's a really good time of year to reread this because of the weather and it coming up to winter. And I just remember it being really magical, and I would love to read this again. The next book is one that the author has just released their second book, which I can't wait to read. This is Cutting for Stone by Abraham Verghese. He is a doctor, and this has a lot of medicine in it, which obviously for me personally I really love. This is set in Ethiopia. There's a surgeon, Mr. Stone, and he has like an affair with one of the Indian nuns in Ethiopia, and she gets pregnant, and the book opens with her trying to give birth to twins. And the twins are Marion and Shiva, and they are very different to each other, and this book follows their lives from their time of birth all the way through. It spans a lot of years, a lot of countries. There's a lot in here about how birth in developing countries can cause a lot of physical trauma, an ongoing trauma for the women who have gone through these horrendous births without any medical help. And so there is quite a lot of sort of medical trauma in there, but it's done in a way where they're looking at how they can make that better. And this was just a phenomenal book. I just remember loving it so much, really loving the characters and falling in love with the story of their lives. And I'm really looking forward to reading his new book. I haven't got it yet, but it would be lovely because of how much I really, really loved this one. The next book is one about dogs. This is a really beautiful book that I don't think I've ever seen talked about on BookTube before, and it is The Story of Edgar Sortel by David Wroblewski. So Edgar is a boy who was born mute, and so when he's a baby and he cries, he doesn't make any sound. And he's born to parents who raise and train these kind of dogs, which are described as being like German Shepherd type dogs. And they're very intelligent, and they are very highly sort of bred and trained. And the family assigned this dog, this amazing dog called Armandine, to Edgar to be like his voice. And so when he cries and things, Armandine will go and get a grown-up to go to him and things like that. And he forms this really amazing relationship with Armandine, and the family's getting on really nicely. And all of a sudden the dad's brother comes, and he starts messing around with their lives, and everything sort of changes from there. And it ends up with Edgar running away from the home. And it was just a book that I remember loving a lot. Armandine is like the best dog I think I've read about in a book. Her and 630 from Lessons in Chemistry. And if I ever have a dog, I'd love to call the dog Armandine, because it's just a name that means something to me. So yeah, that's this one. I heard about this because it was an Oprah's book club choice. That's the only reason I heard about it and got it a long time ago. It came out in 2008. So yeah, but amazing. The last two physical books I have, so one is a fantasy book, which was my book of the year 2 years ago. And this is Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura. This is another book which has a twist, and again, because I know the twist now, it would be really nice to go back and reread it. This is following a girl called Kokoro who is bullied at school, and she's quite unhappy, and she starts staying off school because she doesn't want to go in and face the people who are bullying her. And one day in her bedroom, her mirror starts glowing, this funny kind of light coming from her mirror, and she goes to touch it and she goes through the mirror and is transported into this castle. And the castle is I think there's about 8 children in total who've all gone through their mirrors for the same reason, and they have to be out of the castle by like 5 p.m. each day and back at their own house, otherwise really bad things will happen. And they've got this mission to try and find this key, and they've got a year to try and find it, so they can come back as many times as they want in school hours, but they have to once they find the key, then the whole thing will be over. So they want to find the key, but they also don't want to, because they don't want it to be over. And they have to sort of make friends with each other and work together. And this is just like a really, really beautiful story. And I just really fell in love with it and the characters, and I really, really loved the ending. And I really want to reread it now that I know the ending. I have one non-fiction book in this pile, and then I just have a few little audiobooks to mention. So this one I have started sort of rereading. So this is A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. This is a book about mindfulness and presence and how that can change your life. Eckhart Tolle has done amazing things for my life. I think he's wonderful. And he did a series with Oprah where for an hour and 30 minutes every week they spoke about one chapter. It's all on whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts, you can listen to it. So I've listened to chapter 1 again, and they really deep dive into each chapter. He explains things. They take questions from people who are trying to understand different concepts and stuff. And this is such an amazing book. I would say it did change my life, this book. And after listening to the conversation between Oprah and Eckhart about chapter 1, then I want to read it, and then I'm going to go chapter 2, etc. So this is going to be kind of a longer project, but this isn't one to rush. It's not hard to read. It's quite a big sized book, but it's not hard to read inside. And my mum got me this copy in 2008, so it's been quite a while since I've reread it. So that's all the physical books I have. I've just written down a few audiobooks that I've got that I'd like to listen to again. So the first one is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. I would like to read her whole set of memoirs, and Joe Smith, my friend, and I are planning to buddy read them this year, or probably next year now. So obviously we'll start with the first one, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which I have read, and I don't own a book copy, but I own books of other books in the series, so I'd like to get a book copy of it. The second one is Mariana by Susanna Kearsley. So this is a really cool historical time travel book where our present day protagonist is basically falling back in time and going back to a previous life where she was this girl called Mariana in that I think around the 1600s, and she's trying to work out like if the people in her modern life are also the same people that she was in this past life, or whether they're completely separate and stuff. And it all starts when she moves to this house which seems familiar to her, and it turns out that that house was where she used to live when she was Mariana in the 1600s. And it's a really beautiful book. I absolutely loved it. I read one other book by Susanna Kearsley since then called Bellwether, which I didn't really like, but I think all of her books that I've sort of looked into the synopses of have like that sort of dual timeline, past lives kind of theme, which I really, really love. And again, another book with a twist that I know now, and that would be really interesting to see how that plays out on a second reading. The next audiobook I'd like to listen to again is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. She's an author that I discovered when I read Writers and Lovers, and I've since read a book with Tuesdays in the title, which is a book of her short stories, and also one about a explorer. I can't remember what either of them are called. That's so annoying. And I didn't like them anywhere near as much, but I would love to read more of her work. Writers and Lovers is about a girl called Casey Peabody, who is an aspiring writer, and she's working waitressing jobs to try and pay the bills. She's living in a tiny little kind of cabin on someone else's property because she can't, she's trying to keep the costs down so that she can write more often. And there's a little bit of a love triangle in it. I'd say it's kind of like a literary romance, sort of. I think it kind of, I don't want it to sound like I'm dumbing it down by calling it a romance, but she has lost her mum. She's grieving for her. She is trying to make her way in the world as a writer. She has two guys who she's kind of seeing and trying to decide what to do about that. And it's a really, really great book. The fact that I can still remember all the characters' names, even though I read it about 3 years ago, that means if I can remember names like that, then I know that I really like the book. It was brilliant writing, and I just really, really would love to reread that book. And then the last two, I've got This Close to Okay by Leesa Crossmith, which I found just a really comforting book. So the premise doesn't sound that comforting. So we've got a woman who is a therapist who's driving home from work one day, and she spots a guy on a bridge who looks like he's about to jump. She stops the car. She goes out to him and she manages to talk him down. She says, come on, let's go for a coffee. Like, I can't just leave you here. So they go for a coffee, and then he doesn't have anywhere to stay. And although this bit, I think I did hear a criticism about this bit because it seems like it was a stupid thing to do. But she says to him that he can stay at her house for the night just to kind of like get himself sorted. And it's set over roughly, mainly over the course of this weekend when he's in her life, and about the connection that forms between them, about how much do they reveal about themselves. He seems like he's not telling her everything. There's loads in this book about things that I really love: textures, clothes, candles, drinks, food, all of the kind of creature comforts, and about how those things bring comfort. And I can still remember that it talked about like a particular jumper or a particular blanket, or I can still remember those kinds of things. So there's talk about candles and stuff, and I really, really love that in books. And so even though we have a man who was trying to commit suicide at the beginning of the book, this is not a depressing book, and I loved it, and I would love to listen to it again. And then the final book is another non-fiction, and that is The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. This is a book that I think I should listen to all, like, at least every couple of years. Michael Singer is like a kind of spiritual teacher, and he also wrote The Untethered Soul, which is another book that I really love. And The Surrender Experiment is basically, so he's basically saying, don't resist everything. Like, stop thinking, maybe this won't work out because of this reason, this must be bad for this reason, this shouldn't be happening. Like, letting go all of those kind of thoughts and just going with it and surrendering to it and seeing what happens. That's why it's called The Surrender Experiment. And the things that happen to him are beyond belief. Like, you would not think that they were true, but they are true. And he is so relaxed and so open, and I just find his way of living really amazing, and he's brought a lot of calm and joy to my life. in his books, and I came across him through Oprah as well. And I've now been told that he has a podcast, which is very exciting. So yeah, so that is all the books. I think there's about 13 in total. So watch this space with what I do reread. If you've read any of these and you think I should prioritise it, or you'd like to see me reread any of these in particular, then do let me know. I hope you're having a really lovely week, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye!